It is now my pleasure to introduce a new speaker, and we are moving from Australia to China. And here we have with us Richard Su, who's the founder and curator of TEDx Shanghai, responsible for bringing together the most thought-provoking change makers in China and around the world. Richard is also the co-founder of Pan-Asia Network, which started in 2013 and is a collaboration between Asian and international creatives who are across 35 cities. He's accumulated more than 40 years of creative and brand experiences in companies such as the New York Times, Sotheby's, the MoMA, L'Oreal, Boeing, and Sony. And since 2019, Richard has been the professor of practice at Tongji University School of Design and Innovation in Shanghai, and the Foreign Trade Counselor of Luxembourg to China. Thank you very much, Richard, for being with us today.
Natalie, thank you very much. I apologize you have to read so much of my bio.
No, my pleasure.
Thank you to you and to Sarah as well, to the BUDO. I think we have 30 minutes. I will go on with my presentation. This is not a talk. This is really a sharing with the topic of diversity in design. I actually looked and researched the different angles and what I like to present. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And if you don't mind, I'm going to turn off my video for the time being until the end of the presentation. Thank you. Are you able to see me, to see the presentation?
We see the presentation, yes, in presenter mode. Beautiful.
Okay, great. I started by looking at the definition of diversity, because I really want to, sometimes certain words at a certain time has a whole set of different meanings than what is set out to be. And the few words that really came forward. And I want to maybe focus on one part, the socio-economic status, and also the idea of spectrum of choices. Because I live in China, and I'm going to speak a little bit, maybe thinking about the 17 million designers in China from all different fields and services. That is actually 90% of the world's designers and 45% of Asia's designers. That's a big number. Something that touched me very strongly, 2007, was the exhibition at the Smithsonian and Cooper Hewitt, Design for the Other 90%. I think that kind of set the tone for a lot of the work that I've done since that time. I'm going to share it from my perspective. For me, diversities stand for duality, balance, radically inclusive, one for all for one, black, white, different colors and grays, and most important, also choices. I think later on we can see from the intent of my presentation, intent of the examples of work that we show. I think so much of it is going to be the proof of the theory, the proof of these practices. I'm going to touch on 10 topics reasonably quickly. I'm going to do about 2 minutes of each. I hope I will manage that. And the first one, art, diversity in art. I'm showing most of them about 4 examples, because I think the range of examples really show what is out there and what is possible. The Royal Academy started 1768, was really inclusive by any artist, any architects can submit their models and their work to be exhibited. And from the group of juries, the works would be chosen. One part of art that I've respected and liked, I loved since I first discovered it is art brut. The American or English might call it outsider art, but it's artists that are not necessarily set out to be artists, taught to be artists, but they're doing it entirely for themselves. And this was actually an art therapy that was invented over 100 years ago for mentally or people outside of the society. The work is very honest, the work is pure, it's absolutely beautiful. Christo and Jacques, I mean, the way they framed for the last 40 years, landscape, mountains, bridges, is ways for us to see things with a special eye. And from looking at some of these work, it is really artwork for all. It's not for the selected few. And two of my big heroes of street art, graffiti arts, is JR from France and Views from Portugal. I will, for each one of these, just move a little bit into the artwork or into the images larger. And what's beautiful about this is it really in some ways shows that everybody can be an artist in their own form and shape. Second, about lifelong learning and storytelling, the diversity of that. And I'm showing this because we really want to look at the beauty of what the world offers. It comes in all different shapes and form. The Zulu philosophy of Ubuntu, the older philosophy of grandparents telling stories, elders telling stories under a tree, et cetera, et cetera. Pecha Kucha, they do it in 6 minutes. TED in 18 minutes. Masterclass in 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. They all serve a purpose. It's lifelong learning and telling stories. We look at diversity in education. These are a few things that have always, I cannot forget since I first learned about them. The Freeism Gymnasium in Copenhagen, where all the students, where the student body is empowered to manage the school, to hire the dean, to hire the principals, to hire the teachers. Rolex mentorship program, probably the best mentorship program I've come across. How does one mentor teach one student for 1 year? We don't have to impact 1 million people. Let's just touch one person. Khan Academy, for all, for free at any time. And Asum Sim in Bangkok. This is the campus of Fry Academy in Copenhagen. Teachers and a student on how extraordinary 1 year with a great master, with a great student can change. Khan Academy. And all this costs nothing. Asum Sim, kindergarten all the way to graduate university under one campus, very green in the middle of Bangkok. Diversity, publishing, putting ideas, putting thoughts on paper. I want to go back on education for a little bit. I mean, the idea is really thinking about redesigning, rethinking of education and not changing the entire paradigm. If we're able to move, to touch, to change just 5, 10% at a time, that will be already extraordinary. In publishing, it's again storytelling via paper. Each one of these are telling stories of the world, of the resilience of people, of ingenuity of people. In the 80s, colors touched me a great deal, telling me how much I don't know about the world. 7 billion others of Yann Arthus Bertrand tell us we're just one of the 7 billion. And he brings us to listen to them, to see them, to understand them. And he interviews many of them from around the world with a few very basic questions. So bottom line, we are all very similar. Johannes Willi in Basel, I never read book fair. What an extraordinary book fair of 200 to 300 hand-published books. My brother and I stumbled upon this book fair, and we've been a big follower ever since. The Poverty Line by Charles and Isling. Their research, their incredible work in understanding different poverty lines across the world and what poverty line can afford people to eat each day. Publisher out of Hong Kong, the other 100, telling stories, unsung heroes that we don't normally hear in the normal press and media. Colors of Benetton, 7 billion others. I never read book fair. It's really one of the only places you want to go there and you want to buy, you want to have everything they show. Poverty line, how sometimes just the example of eggs, how different people in different countries, how much can they afford in one day's wages. The other 100, entrepreneurs, photo stories, educators that we don't know about. I hope some of the people behind this will not be upset of what I call useless design. They're not actually useless. We think of them maybe as a little bit less useful. From the 18th centuries, the architecture follies. Follies actually stands in French for foolishness. Yarn bombing, wreck art on the beach, and the hunting lodge by Snorhette of Norway. These were all designed really for no one, no client, nobody paying for it. It just designed it because we can. Follies, very often no purpose, but it actually makes the landscape a little bit more interesting, and the view of the landscape from this folly is beautiful. Yarn bombing, knitting. This is my trishaw in Penang. When I start working very closely and become very good friends with Magda Sayeg, the first line she actually told me is, you don't knit for hate. Knitting is, in other words, knitting is about love. Wreck, sand, wreck art. No client, in some ways, no purpose, but just beautiful, just for beauty, for yourself to enjoy, and for people that walk by. And it's ephemeral. Very short time, it would disappear. This is the lodge by Snorhette. This lodge is never locked. It's for people that may get lost when they're up in the mountains. They will find the top of it. They will be able to go in there in the snow in a very cold weather before they can get to where they stay. Diversity in design, a few examples of it. Marker, somebody I've respected for a very long time. We kind of call her the godmother of fashion design in China. 10,000 milers by the Maasai people, using tire, using car tire, car wheels, used ones to make shoes. And you can walk 10,000 miles with them. The liftwear for Parkinson's disease, designed by Anupam. Edible chopsticks. Chopsticks are being used just in China, 80 billion sets of chopsticks a year. and they are now made of wheat, potatoes, and corn. This is Marker, her study of fashion from the people on the edge of China. Look at really explore the beauty of the vernacular design and people that don't think of themselves as designer. So the big question here is also, who are designers? Can everybody be designer? Is the word designer really, exclusive? This is her brand, Wu Yong, actually means useless. 10,000 milers, or we just simply call 10,000 miles. Liftwear for Parkinson, for patients with Parkinson's disease. Edible chopsticks. Diversity, something that I try to share in school, in classes, is the idea of second, third, fourth degree of meaning, the depth of ideas. Aga Khan Award really started 1977, one of the first architecture award. But what they do is they celebrate all kind of architecture of different price, of different purpose, but it's really for society, for people. And it doesn't mean how big the palace is or how small the shack is. It can win a prize if it hits the purpose very well. Serpentine Gallery, the summer pavilion. Every architect's dream to be invited to design a pavilion. Baoxi, Zhejiang, about 5 hours from Shanghai, the Bamboo Biennale, started 2016, 12 architects, 18 projects, and the 7 bus stops of Krumbach, Austria. We can look at the diversity of design and price point and the purpose of these. All they do is they really impact the society and the place that they sit for the Muslim community. Serpentine Gallery. This is by a wonderful African architect named Francis Curie. Baoxi, Bamboo Biennale. The 7 bus stops. What's interesting, very interesting for the Baoxi project is it has put this little village on the map. Nobody has heard of it. Many people cannot find it for a long time. But it really a project, collaborative project with different architects and creatives, put this city, this village on the map. 7 bus stops. This township does not have the budget for museum, for big cultural projects. Instead, they invited 7 different architects from different parts of the world. The singular only condition is please build a bus stop in our township and please make it in our town so that the worksmen, the glass people, the metal people, the wood workers can learn from your craft. Rituals. I think what's remarkable is the rituals of different sorts, of different kind. How does the Ramadan make everybody to be equally human for one day, for the month? During the daytime, everybody will learn what does it mean to have no water, no food. It is about patience, it is about humanity and humility. Suspended coffee. Over 100 years ago, Naples, people in Naples realized how many poor people they were. They would go to a coffee shop, buy coffee for themselves, and they will pay for 1 extra coffee that will be suspended or sospeso. That means somebody else can come in and claim that coffee for free. Pay it forward, just imagining. Do 3 things, work on 3 things, service 3 people, service 3 organizations, and push it forward. And the 10 principles of Burning Man. Freeism. Freeism is something cornered by a friend of ours, Isaac Mao. Shareism and the concept of buy one, give one free. Twin books, something created by Andrew. You buy one book, a second book will be sent to an orphan. One for one. This movement has built businesses. Not every social project is a donation. A lot of businesses can be built entirely based on social good. The idea of shareism, you don't need to own houses. You don't need to own cars. And a lot of times you can just borrow tools that you use once a while. And a friend in Berlin, Maximilian Magnus, something he touched me very much with a story he told me. Every time I'm able to sell one piece of art, I will buy a piece of art from another artist. Ingenuity cannot be stopped. Showing 5 examples here. This is actually the last of the 10. Ned Billy from South Africa. Every woman are taught, learn, self-learn how to paint. There's not one white wall in the tribe. And Esther, when she was 81 years old, she was invited to paint one of the BMW car series. Indian taxis in Mumbai that is totally decorated inside. It's an entire experience traveling in one. DJ Focus out of Sierra Leone. He has been invited to MIT, to Harvard, to a lot of top maker organizations, maker fair around the world. And New York City phone booths. 14,000 phone booths. What do you do with them with everybody having a cell phone? And Salvage Supper Club coming from Design for Social Innovation at SVA. The students is Josh. It's about eating everything. This is the tribe Ned Billy. I followed it for 20, 30 years. I just find these women to be natural, amazing artists, and they don't call themselves artists. This is the remarkable thing. Taxis. These taxis are printed and stretched. And imagine the conversations with the taxi driver. Imagine the smiles it brings to people. This is DJ Focus. He finds scrap and he created radio stations, he created broadcasts, he shared music, everything based entirely out of scraps of trash. And this is John's solution for all these phone booths. And basically it is neighborhood bookstore. It's called a Parasite bookstore. You can drop books that you have read, you can pick up books that you like to read, and it is entirely free of charge. This is the Salvage Supper Club. So much food is put to waste because it looks funny, because it is a little bit damaged. So Josh created this supper club in the beginning in dumpsters, very clean dumpsters with chefs coming to cook for 10, 15 people. And it changed people's perspective as to what do we do when we see a fruit that is not perfectly shaped or vegetable. I'm going to go quickly. We spoke about diversity before. Let's look at the intent. Can we impact? Can designers impact? Look at the amount of opportunities for impact. A lot of these projects is all win all the way around. It is caring, it is mindful, fun, happy, touching, and it is about emotion. Somebody spoke about emotional design. I believe this is a very important one that we don't hear enough of in design schools, in creative schools. Better for people, better for planet. And I believe design is everywhere. Design for all, by all. So on the action front, I just think that we all need to go out and dream, create, ideate, etc., etc. And there are no excuses. There are no delays, and impossible is not in our language. This wonderful world belongs to all of us, and let's hack it. Thank you. Have I lost everybody?
Absolutely not. I think we were transfixed by some of those beautiful images and beautiful, very, I think, kind of peaceful approach that you brought to diversity. I think that it really highlighted a lot of positivity. I think that it was a very very lovely, way to spend 25 minutes. I think this was also enjoyed by a lot of our participants that we're reading about here in the chat. Someone has asked where and how can we stay in touch with Richard? So I think that we're all eager to hear more. So if you're willing to share some information about where people can follow some of your work, or an email address, even better, that's wonderful. I think, Richard, perhaps just as we conclude your session, maybe share a little bit about your approach, even just to this presentation, some of the imagery that you shared, some of these stories that you have witnessed even firsthand. Where do you get this inspiration? How do you stay connected to some of the lovely stories that you were able to share with us today?
I think in the last probably decade, 15 years of spending time at schools, with government bodies, with township, we realize talking is not enough. We really have to roll up our sleeves and do things. And another thing is to convince them to let us roll up our sleeves. I'm not just talking about civic projects, but also client. There's nothing more beautiful than examples, than great case studies, than not just talk about this is what I've done, this is what I've done, this is what the world has done. This is what neighbors next to us have done. These are what neighboring countries have done. So that a country like China does not always have to look at the West to learn. They may learn something amazing from Thailand's sufficiency economy, from Bhutan's gross national happiness. There are a lot of things that is actually more relevant to Asians that are closer to us. And I believe, yes, profit is a big draw, but I think emotions is also another one. If you're touched by a project, by a movement, I think you will go further. If some of the designers we talked about, design for the other 90%, but imagining if 10% of the people really design for 100% of the world, that really service that. And there are more and more ways that all these ideas is actually beneficial, is profitable. When you put a village on the map by a group of architects, you're actually creating tourism. You're creating better economy for the village. You are actually going to hopefully do 100 more villages, because there's so many design schools that everybody's trying to find a way to fuel their creative energy. So if we're able to not necessarily just think about me, but think about us, think about all, right? And I think there are different things in the past that have really shaped you. I always say that we create our own religion by everything that we learn. So I think from what I've learned from Khan Academy, from the from the things that I've learned from a lot of these different examples, we have created our own philosophy, our own religion, our own belief system.
And thank you, Richard, Ben, for sharing your religion with us today. We really
Thank you. We're on the dot, 30 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.